Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. Today on the program, the President voids the amnesty granted to Senator Sonny Trillanes.
Never existed, never been valid for non-compliance with certain mandatory requirements for the availment of that amnesty.
The opposition senator calls it political persecution.
Hindi ko maisip na talagang they would go to great lengths, even make themselves look stupid para lang to get rid of me.
Malacanang defends its decision.
The amnesty granted to him was political. He was friendly with the previous administration. That's why he was granted amnesty without compliance with the requirements set by law.
While the soldier-turned-lawmaker vows to exhaust all legal remedies. Magdalo Representative Gary Alejano and constitutionalist Father Aquino join us live. And later, be mesmerized with these artworks made from sand. That's for today's In Focus. Thank you for joining us. I'm Pinky Webb. A night at the Senate for Senator Antonio Trillanes. This after authorities ordered his arrest in the wake of a presidential proclamation that voided his amnesty granted by the Aquino administration in 2011. Proclamation 572 says Trillanes did not file for an official amnesty application. It adds Trillanes never expressed his guilt. In a privileged speech, Trillanes questioned both provisions. He also said cases against him were already dismissed by the court.
Ano ngayon ang basis kung bakit ako aarestuhin? And maliwanag dun sa kanilang proclamation that Duterte is ordering the AFP and PNP to lawfully arrest me. Lawful. Ano ba yung operative word? Meaning, kailangan mo ng warrant of arrest. Sa warrant of arrest, nakalagay doon ang krimen. Ito yung pinakamalaking kalokohan na ginawa ni Duterte ngayong araw na ito. Maaring magkakaiba man ang ating opinion sa politika. But, pag mga ganito na, institusyon na ang ginigiba, kailangan natin tindigan.
Trillanes was granted the amnesty after he led an attempt to topple the Arroyo administration in 2003. The senator says in a statement that he will remain under the custody of the Senate president until his lawyers have filed the necessary petition against the nullification of his amnesty. The Senate, through Senate President Tito Soto, made a stand to protect their colleague. Soto also made it clear no arrest will happen as long as Trillanes is within the premises of the Senate. Dozens of members and supporters of the Magdalo Group have visited Trillanes to show solidarity. The senator's comrade, Magdalo Party List Representative Gary Alejano, appeals to the armed forces and the national police not to follow illegal orders from President Duterte.
Kung hindi ho balat sibuyas ang gobyerno sa kritisismo ng gobyerno ng taong bayan, nasaan na ho ang check and balance? Wala na, hindi ho sa balikat ng iisang tao ang kapakanan ng bansa nito at kinabukasan ng ating bansa. Wala ho sa balikat ng iisang tao. In fact, the President is not above the Constitution. And I am calling on the armed forces and the Philippine National Police that they should not follow illegal orders.
Justice Secretary Menardo Guevara, who is the country's officer in charge while President Duterte is visiting Israel and Jordan, explains the president's move to void Trillanes' amnesty. Our justice correspondent Anjo Alimario takes us through the reasons behind Mr. Duterte's proclamation.
It all boils down to two things. One, Senator Antonio Trillanes did not fill out in person and under oath the official application for amnesty. And two, there's no admission of guilt on the crimes he's been charged with. Justice Secretary Menardo Guevara says this simply means the declaration of Trillanes' amnesty was void from the moment it was issued. And Guevara also explains Trillanes' application does not exist in the records, even his admission of guilt. He says he has no personal knowledge as to when the review of the amnesty began. All he knows is that The review has been ongoing for quite some time. Who's behind it? Guevara is also not sure, but he adds this might have been studied in the past by the Office of the Solicitor General. The Justice Secretary also points out legislative immunity does not apply to Trillanes.
There is a provision under the Constitution that provides or gives members of Congress the privilege of not being arrested while Congress is in session. But take note that that will apply only if the offense charge is punishable by an imprisonment of not more than 6 years. So yun lang ang applicable yung privilege na yun.
But coup d'etat carries the penalty of life imprisonment. So what happens now? The Justice Department asked the Makati Court to reopen Trillanes' case, which had been due for promulgation.
As the order that I have reviewed so far this morning, it did not include the name of Senator Trillanes. But again, we're having our prosecutors in Makati check with Regional Trial Court Branch 148, check with the records to find out if there were other orders or decisions that were rendered pursuant to approving the amnesty applied for.
The Justice Department has filed a very urgent motion asking the Makati Court two things. One, to issue a warrant against Trillanes, and two, to issue a whole departure against Trillanes to bar him from leaving the country. Now, on Trillanes' claim that it was Solicitor General Jose Calida who was the one behind the revocation of his amnesty.
I don't know about him now, but he's not a judge, he's not a prosecutor. So if he wants to file cases, let him file a case.
Should Trillanes go to the Supreme Court and challenge President Duterte's action, Calida says he's ready. Anjo Alimario, CNN Philippines.
Meantime, in a press briefing Tuesday, the Defense Department said it was the Office of the Solicitor General who inquired about Trillanes' application for amnesty in 2010. Let's go straight to the source of the story. We have Magdalo Representative Gary Alejano. Congressman, it's been a long night for you. I'm assuming you were at the office of the senator last night, sir.
Yes,
you
I was
visited
there,
him
together with other Magdalo officers. We went there to show support to the senator, and at the same time also we discussed matters on how to address the situation. Napag-usapan naman doon na harapin natin ito. Hindi naman pwedeng aatras tayo dito. We've stood up against a corrupt government. Now we're standing up against an abusive administration. So, mandato natin ito. We have to do it for the people. This is not about Senator Trillanes actually, not only about the Magdalo. This is about the country. It reflects on how what kind of democracy right now we have in the country.
So now you don't call it, well, previously you called it a corrupt government, previously in the past, sir, nung you meron pong 2003, Oakwood Mutiny, 2006, Manila Pen Siege, sir. Now you call it an 2007 rather, 2006 yung Marine standoff pala.
Yes, yeah.
2007, you call this now an abusive government. That's what you call it.
Yes, an abusive government can commit so many crimes, including corruption. Because if they cannot be accountable to the people, then they can always do things according to their own interpretation. And they can always reinterpret rules and regulations or in laws in the country. So, hindi sila mananagot. Dahil they can always, threaten people. If you go against the government, then you will likely end up like Senator De Lima. That's exhibit number 1.
Exhibit number 2, meron na ho ba?
And exhibit number 2 is Chief Justice Sereno.
Okay.
And exhibit number 3, Senator Trillanes. So if the government can do these things to them, how much more the ordinary Filipino?
Sir, how was he? Nung nagkita kayo, kamusta ho siya?
Sanay naman ho tayo sa medyo gitgitan at alam natin na hinahunting siya. Marami na rin nag-caution sa kanya before pa, even before in 2016. Pero nananaig kasi yung call for service. We need to do this because mandato natin ito. Otherwise, we defeat the purpose of why we are here in the first place. We offered ourselves to the Filipino people because we wanted reforms. We're just instrument actually because the real reforms in the country rest on the shoulders of every Filipino. Instrumento lang kami. Now, we would be remiss of our duty if we just that kind of harassment ay titiklop ka na kaagad. So, haharapin ni Senator Trillanes yan. Hahanapin ng grupang Magdalo yan. Ang importante lang dito, medyo pinuhin naman nila ang proseso. Huwag naman yung garapalan. Dahil ang ginagawa ho nila would reflect on the stability of the country would reflect on the kind of democratic institutions and processes we have right now.
Okay, and then you made a call to the armed forces and I think also to the Philippine National Police, sir, not to follow, pero meron kayo sinabing illegal orders.
Yes.
Pakilinaw po sa amin yun. Kasi an illegal order to you could be a legal order to them, sir.
Yes. Actually, napakahirap ipaliwanag yan sa loob ng armed forces. In fact, when we were still there, don't obey illegal orders. So, the question is, what are illegal orders? No, sa mata ng isang sundalo, pag inutusan kita, verbal orders, that's an order. Kaya nga, nandoon ang moral conscience, pag-iintindi ng mga batas. Dahil hindi ho armed forces ng isang tao yan. Our armed forces is the armed forces of the Filipino people. Ngayon, pag sinabi ko, I am just reminding of the armed forces of their mandate, no, not to obey illegal orders dahil walang basis ang pag-aresto kay Senator Trillanes.
Okay.
In fact, they were there last night and they were asked by what basis are you arresting Senator Trillanes? They cannot show any document except the proclamation of the president. And we know that only the court can order the arrest of a person. And they don't have the warrant of arrest.
Paano ho yun, Congressman, kapag nagkaroon ng desisyon ang judge ng Makati RTC para po dito sa alias warrant na i-file po ng DOJ and whole departure order against Senator Trillanes, sir. Does that make it lawful?
Yes. Although, right now, there are no more cases. They were all dismissed. If ever there will be valid warrant of arrest presented to Senator Trillanes, he will comply.
But what is valid for you? Because balikan po natin, there was already, we showed, lumabas na po, ganito na lang po, yung sinabi na dismissed po yung rebellion and coup d'etat charges against you and kayo na lang po on the rest, and Senator Antonio Trillanes. So basically what you're telling me is, wala na yon.
Wala na yon.
Tapos na yon.
In fact, ang amnesty, ay ang kanyang root word ay amnesia. It is as if nothing happened, no offense was committed, no offender committed a crime. So, but the point is, assuming na lang they have the basis, no, for purposes of discussion, they should have gone to the court first, question the validity of the amnesty of Senator Trillanes and revive the case and secure warrant of arrest before they even
But
assign.
I have a question on that, sir. Why must they go to a court when the court did not issue the amnesty? Let's go back to that.
Yes.
The President Pinoy, President Aquino, issued the amnesty, the proclamation in 2010. Sir,
2010.
November 24, in-issue po niya. Nag-apply po kayo January 4 or 5, 2011. Nag-grant po kayo 2 weeks after that. So, it's the President, with the concurrence of Congress, that granted the amnesty.
Granting of amnesty is not only an executive action. The executive is just one. It is the action of the whole government. In fact, you need a concurrence of the Senate.
Exactly.
The judiciary has to do its part by taking care of the cases. So buong gobyerno ang gumagalaw dito. Ganon din sanang ginawa ng administrasyon. Buong gobyernong pinagalaw niya.
Pero initiated by the President, sir, concurred by Congress. So, my question is, bakit nyo sinasabing kailangan sila pumunta sa korte when the court was never even a participant to this?
The granting of the amnesty in totality, bahagi ang judiciary.
Yeah, but it was the ad hoc committee of the Department, diba,
yes,
of
ang
National
ad hoc
Defense.
committee was tasked to process and accept the application. Yun lang naman ho, yan. But the point is, in order to arrest Senator Trillanes, they have to undo first the dismissal of the case. So, may valid ho silang warrant of arrest because in our country, only the court can issue warrant of arrest.
Which, ayun po ang ginawa nila. They're ordering asking rather.
There's an afterthought. They would have done that before even declaring the revocation.
Okay,
yes.
But nonetheless, sir, ginawa po nila.
Ginagawa nila ngayon.
Final na po. Meron na po silang petition before the Makati RTC judge. So, what could be an alias warrant? Are you saying that kung inulit po na ipagpatuloy, sir, for the sake of argument, pagpatuloy natin yung rebellion or coup d'etat dahil hindi po na-promulgate yon, dahil hindi natuloy dahil sa amnesty, pwede ho bang ipagpatuloy yon?
Well, if they really question the validity of the amnesty of Senator Trillanes, I'm not a lawyer. No? But I have a firm belief that once the amnesty is granted to a person, regardless of your basis, it cannot be taken back. Kung may basis ka na kasalanan yan now, to file a case now,
Bago.
but go back. Kasi it will have a far-reaching implications not only for those who availed amnesty before us, but also those who are going to avail of the amnesty later
future.
on, in the future. So you are telling the people that you cannot trust the government because anytime they can go back to their application form.
Pero ang problema kung sinasabi nila, let's clear this up, it's not revoking the amnesty. It was void from the very beginning as if it never happened.
Well, that is still a process of revoking the amnesty because there was an issuance of the amnesty.
Okay, there was an issue of an amnesty. In fact, you were saying, and Senator Antonio, there were two issues here raised, sir. There was no filing of the amnesty.
Malabo yan?
At number two, yun pong non-admission of guilt. Okay. Tapos may lumabas po during the privileged speech of the senator, a news clip that nanunumpa po siya, nakita po yung papel ni Senator Antonio Trillanes, Lieutenant Senior grade that time, Antonio Trillanes. We can show that through a tweet of Abby Valteno. Pagkatapos po niyan, yan po ang pinakita. Does that mean valid na ho yun? Tama ho yun? Ganun ho ba yun? And nasan ho yung papel? I guess that's what they're asking. Where is the paper?
Well, you have the certificate of amnesty. There was a committee that was tasked to take in applications from those who want to avail of the amnesty.
Right.
And they have appreciated the compliance of the applicants. And the fact that they have recommended granting of amnesty, therefore they have determined that you have sufficiently complied with the requirements. For example, lisensya.
Nakita ko po yung tweet na yan ni Edwin Lacerda.
Example, sa airport, hinihingian ka ng immigration officer ng passport. Passport ang pakita mo, hindi yung nasaan yung application form mo. Pag walang application form yan, hindi valid yan. Pag meron ka ng certificate of amnesty, yun ang valid. Kasi ang mga application form na yan, hindi mo na tinatago yan.
Meron ka ba, sir? Meron ka bang ikaw personally, do you have two things? The application form?
Alam mo, hindi ko naalala kahit kami nag-uusap. Wala naman kaming copy noon. Binigay namin sa committee.
Wala kayong And
wala
then,
kaming maalala.
do you have a copy of you admitting guilt? Di ba alala nyo, sinabi nyo may checklist?
Isa lang yan. Yung application mo, nandun yung picture mo, nandun yung mga data mo, may isang box doon that you're admitting guilt to any offense committed under the revised penal code and I think that
yun po yung application na may picture.
Yes.
Yun na po yun, yung pinakita natin kanina.
Yes.
Okay, so it's supposed to be part
Kasama
of that.
na rin doon.
Where is that, sir? Nasa na po yun?
Nasa kanila.
Sa DND.
Ngayon, ang problema, naghahanap sila ng records na sila din may hawak.
Opo.
Kung sinunog nila, assuming, without really concluding.
So you never got a copy, sir?
We never
got a copy.
Yeah.
All right, we'll be taking a short break. We'll be right back. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Our guest today, Magdalo Representative Gary Alejano. And joining us now on the line is constitutional expert and CONCOM member, Father Ranilio Aquino. Father Aquino, good morning to you.
Hello.
Hello. Hello. Father, thank you for taking our call. First and foremost, I just want to do a definition of terms. Maybe you can explain to us, what is amnesty for you, sir?
Well, there is a fixed definition of amnesty, no? Well, in the first place, Pinky, generally in the law, amnesty is one form of a pardon. In other words, it's an exercise of clemency. However, there are differences between pardon and amnesty. In the case of pardon, pardon is granted by the president after conviction. So there has to be conviction first. In the case of amnesty, amnesty can be granted even before trial. So there need not be trial and conviction for an amnesty to be granted. Number two, in the case of pardon, the pardoning power is exclusive to the president. In the case of amnesty, the Constitution requires that it be concurred in by Congress. So those are the key differences, but it's important to note that the general rules relating to the exercise of presidential clemency also apply to amnesty. Apply to amnesty. The third difference, Pinky, is pardon is usually directed at a specific person, Amnesty is generally addressed to a class or a group of persons.
Right. Thank you for the definition, Father. Now, my next question is, can an amnesty, number one, be voided, or can it be revoked?
Yes. I presume that you raised that question in relation to the Trillanes case, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes. If you read the EO says that according to President Duterte, the grant of amnesty to Senator Trillanes was void because Senator Trillanes supposedly did not comply with the conditions of the amnesty. My position is that that is not for the President to say. That is not a matter for executive determination. Only the courts can properly say that.
In fact, Father, that's what Congressman Alejano is telling me. He's beside me right now. And I was questioning that because the court, to me, as a layman, sir, was never part of this whole amnesty granting because it came from President Aquino. It was passed on to the Department of National Defense that created an ad hoc committee, sir, for the application. So why is there now the inclusion of a court, Father?
That is exactly what we mean by separation of powers and the constitutional appropriation of powers, Pinky. Normally, you would say the President granted it, therefore it is for the President to determine whether or not its grant is valid or invalid. But if you would do that, you would be concentrating too much governmental power in one official, which is contrary to the tenets of democracy, which is the reason that we separate the powers of government. And ever since the American decision of Marbury versus Madison, it has always been maintained that it is the judicial department of government that declares where rights lie.
Okay. Section 19, I want to bring this up on the screen, sir. Section 19 of Article 7 of the Constitution says, ito po yun, except in cases of impeachment otherwise provided in this Constitution, the President may grant. Ito na po yung sinasabi, reprieves, commutations, pardons, and remit fines and forfeitures after conviction by final judgment. Here's the next line, sir, and I know you know this by heart. He also shall also have the power to grant amnesty with the concurrence of a majority of all the members of Congress. Sir, one thing being raised by Secretary Harry Roque and Secretary Menardo Guevara is that it was void. So in the question of whether Congress should concur, if they need Congress to also take away this amnesty, doesn't apply here because it was void from the very beginning. My question, Father, is this: can an amnesty be void from the very beginning?
Yes, an amnesty can be void ab initio. However, it is not for the President to say that it was void ab initio. Once more, that is a matter of judicial determination. Number two, the President, when an amnesty is granted, cannot unilaterally withdraw or revoke the amnesty because we have American authority. I cite American authority because we have no Philippine case yet like that. And in the case of in the case where there is no Philippine authority, considering the similarity of our laws, American jurisprudence will lie. And American jurisprudence tells us that once an amnesty is granted, even if fraudulently obtained, the amnesty cannot just be taken away without appropriate processes. And what the appropriate processes are certainly judicial processes.
When you say judicial process, Father Aquino, exactly what do you mean? It needs to be...
This, for me, should be the process. All right. The executive order of the President should be read as an order to the police to implement any standing warrant of arrest if there are any. When the warrant of arrests are served, then Senator Trillanes can then say, I am not covered by that and you cannot arrest me because of the amnesty. The government will then try to refute that by proving that the amnesty was void. That is the time the government will try to prove. But the final determination of whether in fact the grant was valid or void is not the executive's call, but the judicial call.
I see. That's the process you're looking at, Father. But the possibility, I'm just second guessing, which probably everyone else is that Senator Trillanes will be filing, his camp will be filing possibly a motion before the Supreme Court. Would this also be the right determination or course of action?
Of course. In fact, since Article 8, Section 1 grants the judiciary, the courts, the power to determine whether there is grave abuse of discretion on any part of any branch of government. Senator Trillanes can ask the Supreme Court to determine whether or not the proclamation of President Duterte constitutes grave abuse of discretion.
Father Aquino, very quickly, because there was a petition before the Makati Court, the RTC, to issue an alias warrant and an HDO, sir. What do you think of that? And what is an alias warrant?
An alias warrant can be issued only if the service of the first warrant failed, and as long as the case is still current. But if the case has already been dismissed, then the alias warrant cannot work anymore. They will have to file the case again unless double jeopardy lies.
Okay, isa na lang, Father, because you mentioned, sabi niyo po, if the case is dismissed. Now, Congressman Alejano is saying that the coup d'etat and the rebellion charges have been dismissed. Ano po? Pero you also have Malacanang saying that it was not really promulgated because pumasok po itong grant of amnesty.
Under the rules, if a dismissal takes place after arraignment and the accused has entered a plea, then there will be double jeopardy. You cannot file the case again. However, if the dismissal took place before arraignment and the accused consented to the dismissal, the case can be refiled.
Okay, thank you. I wish we had more time, Father Remedies Aquino. We hope to speak to you again. Maraming salamat po sa inyo. We'll be taking another short break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Our guest today, Magdalo Representative Gary Alejano. Sir, so ano hong inyong reaction dun kay Father Aquino, yung kanyang mga sinabi?
Well, I agree with him. No, ang sa atin naman, kami ay committed in following the provisions of the Constitution. The fact that we join politics, we subscribe to the Constitution, pumasok kami sa politika, we will agree to that. Kaya nga, sinasabi natin sa administrasyon, pinuhin nyo naman ang galaw nyo, yung merong legal na bas yan, hindi yung out of nowhere, just proclamation, i-arrest na tayo.
But are you ready sakaling sumunod po kayo?
Lagi natin hinaharap yan. Ang importante lang dito, huwag silang mag-abuso sa pwesto kasi wala ko kaming ginawang krimen. We're just doing our mandate for the people.
Congressman Gary Alejano. Sir, thank you for your time. Maraming salamat po sa inyong oras. And thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines.